Unleash the power of your training. Welcome to Using the 4 Disciplines of Execution Will Lead to Successful Implementation. Here are your hosts, Chris Mcchesney and Mike Ziegler.
Again, I want to welcome our very special guest. He's a global practice leader of execution for Franklin Covey, lead author of the 4 Disciplines of Execution, which is currently the world's best-selling book for strategy execution. He's the primary developer of the 4 Disciplines methodology and for more than 2 decades, and has worked with over 3,000 different organizations on strategy implementation. He is now a featured leadership speaker at venues all over the world. So please give a warm welcome to Chris Mcchesney.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, everyone. These are really fun. I like these fast sessions. I was just saying to the last group, normally everyone tells me to slow down because I can really get going. But in this session, they're like, no, Chris, you go as fast as you want. So I hope you like fast because we're going to fly. So in 15 minutes, maybe 20, you're going to get the fastest overview of the 4 disciplines that anyone's seen. I'm going to try and keep it clear and simple. And then that'll give us some time to have Q&A. So as we're going through this, capture questions that you've got. Sometimes the yeah buts are good. You know what I mean? Like you hear it and that made sense, but you can't make it maybe work in your world. And those tend to be very good questions. So yeah buts. And then also ahas are good. So as you're going through, if you see something and you have like a light bulb, that might be real valuable to somebody else. Okay. We're going to dive in. The first thing I want to tell you about the 4 disciplines of execution is that it doesn't refer to executing on your whole operation. Like the 4 disciplines of execution, that's not a new way to sort of run your operation. You already know how to do that. The 4 disciplines of execution have a very specific purpose for helping teams and leaders execute on that one really hard part of their strategy. And that always tends to be something that requires a change in human behavior or a high degree of human engagement. It's the thing that won't work if they don't care, right? There's certain things I can do because I'm the boss. You know what I mean? And I can buy it, I can mandate it. There's other things that happen as a natural part of the way that we run, and we have a real slick operation. But then there are these results, these breakthrough results. That's what this is about. And when it comes to getting a breakthrough, when it comes to this, there's a bunch, but there's one really dominant reason that leaders struggle with this so much. I'm going to introduce, if you're new to 4 disciplines, I'm going to introduce a new term that we use called the whirlwind. And you know it. It's your day job. It's the enormous amount of energy required to just maintain the operation today. And it's the biggest impediment to the new goals. It's kind of interesting because the whirlwind is keeping you alive. It's life support. That's how we survive. But if you think about critical initiatives in your career that haven't made it, they didn't go down with a loud, embarrassing crash. They went down slowly and quietly, like they were being suffocated. It's the day job. It's the whirlwind. And the reason that this is a problem is because the nature of the whirlwind is urgent. And human nature, being what it is, responds to urgent much better than we respond to important. And this can be very frustrating for leaders, particularly if you've ever been a leader and you've really got a direction. There's a really critical area of focus for you, and everybody agrees with you. We think if we can just convince them, they'll do it. Well, they're convinced and they're not doing it. Like if you've ever been there, weeks are going by. We're not getting any traction. Most leaders, when it comes to execution, they don't lose to defiance. They don't lose to stupidity. They don't lose to lazy. Everybody's busy, right? They lose to busy, the day job. This is the crux. So what have we said? How do we execute on a strategy or a plan that requires a change in human behavior in the middle of this 100-mile-an-hour whirlwind? That's where we're going. Okay, so buckle up. If that's relevant to you, these are the 4 rules. We didn't invent the rules. We just tweaked them a lot. Like they're universal. They've always been there. They're based on the principles of focus, leverage, engagement, and accountability. How do we execute on a goal that requires that human buy-in? That's where we're going. All right. The first discipline is focus on the wildly important. Because of the nature of the whirlwind, we have got to narrow. We've got to have a tight, narrow focus. That's the first discipline. So think of it this way. On any given team, and this is not what we're recommending. I'm going to give you that in a second. This is what we've observed over 20 years and 3,000 organizations. Teams that take on 2 to 3 new things over the course of a year tend to get 2 to 3 done, particularly if they attack them one at a time. 4 to 10, it goes backwards. Okay. It's funny. People remember this diagram. People that we worked with 20 years ago still remember this visual you're seeing right now. You don't have to take notes. If I run into you in 20 years, you're going to remember. I don't know if it's because it's painful. I don't know why, but nobody forgets this diagram at 11 to 20. And you've been there. You've been on teams that were trying to do 11 to 20 things. It's all whirlwind, right? And why is this so tricky? Why is this so difficult? Because all the energy is pushing you to the 11 to 20. There's no energy pushing you to narrow the focus. And here's another thing. Those 11 to 20, they're all good ideas. And there will always be more good ideas than there is capacity to execute. Okay, so this is like rule 1. And this is a hard rule for ambitious, creative, intelligent people. All right, so let's break it down. So let's go back to the whirlwind versus the goals, right? The urgent versus the important. Here's the first thing you got to realize. This thing's burning 80%. The whirlwind, the day job, is going to take 80% before you do anything. And the people on the front line, to them, it feels like 100%. So we know we have to be very selective. Whirlwind +1, right? For the organization, for the teams, right? Whirlwind +1. And the one, what's the one? How do I know what the one? Well, here's one way to think about, well, what is the breakthrough? I'd love 7 things. All right. What lives at the intersection in your mind as a leader of really important? And if I'm honest with myself, I don't think we're going to get it. I don't think it's going to happen. Like that's a hard thing. If you understood what I just said, you've got some operational realities in your life. Like if you got that, right? You know what I mean? We have to change it. And unless we really start doing something different, what's the definition of insanity, right? Keep doing the same things, expecting a different. We got to really do something different here. That's what I want you to think about. And then when you think about that, I want you to put it in the form of a target, right? And sometimes this is easy and sometimes this is hard. Sometimes there is no one way to measure that thing you're thinking about. Well, I'm going to tell you, pick one. It's a start, right? Give it a starting line, give it a finish line, give it a deadline. Increase job-specific trainings from 47 to 229. This was Mountain Land Physical Therapy. We did a little excerpt on this particular goal in the new second edition of the 4 Disciplines book. They, for years, had been building into the budget money to really finish their job-specific training for their clinics, right? Never got 4 years in a row, didn't happen, right? On New Year's Eve, 2019, they got the last one done, right? Starting line, finish line, deadline. Increased new membership from 750 to 1,000 by December 31st. Now, here's another thing I want you to know. It's not enough just to give it a target, to give it a starting line and a finish line and a deadline. That goal's got to be broken down to the front line, right? To the teams, where the teams work, right? So if that was my goal, and you see this thing called WIG there. Sorry, I haven't said what that is. Wildly important goal. And all that means is that there's lots of goals. That's a goal we're going to apply the 4 disciplines to. That's all that means. Doesn't mean, right? There are other goals are really important too, but this is the one that's going to get that treatment. Okay. If there's multiple teams responsible for that objective, we've got to break that goal down. Think of them like battles. These are the team level, wildly important goals, right? Can I take our strategy down to the fewest number of executable targets? So each team, in addition to their day job, has one target that they're accountable for. This is not a plan. Planning is where you tell people what to do. This is an objective. This is a target that's being translated. We're moving from a concept, right? Concepts are complex and they have to be explained, right? To the fewest number of executable targets at the front line of the organization. That is discipline 1. Okay, so if that made sense, and we're going really fast. Discipline 2 says act on the lead measures. Okay, well, what's a lead measure? Well, it's different than a lag measure. Okay? Lag measures are what we were just talking about, right? Whether it was the big, wildly important goal or the team wildly important goal, those wildly important goals, they are output performance metrics. Though that's called a lagging measure. Okay, lead measures are different. Lead measures have 2 characteristics. It's the most important thing I'm going to tell you right here. This is it. Okay? So if you're saying to yourself, I'm only coming away with one thing, we're there right now. All right. They are predictive, like the name suggests. It leads to it, and I can influence it. I can get my hands on it. Now, if you're still like, that's still too esoteric, I'm going to bring it right down. Weight loss, lag measure, weight. Lead measure, number of calories I'm eating, number of calories I'm burning, diet and exercise. That's the lead lag thing right there. Here's the key. It doesn't matter if you know the lead measures. It only matters if you're tracking them in real time. If you know somebody that's lost 30 pounds, most people do. That's a hard thing. That's super hard. If you know somebody that's done it, I promise you, they were tracking something. They were tracking lead measures. There's a whole bunch of psychological reasons behind it. There's a great book out called Atomic Habits. If you really want to understand why this works, read James Clear's Atomic Habits, and you'll get it. But I don't have time to go into the psychological reasons, but there's several things that happen. First, the team's they're the ones that create the lead measures. You might give them ideas, you might give them options, but you let the team, the people that are closest to the work, Edwards Deming, the great quality guru, said they're the ones that understand cause and effect relationships. Okay, what do these sound like? Increased new members from 750 to 1,000. Okay, well, that's the lag. Now, just listen to this first one. Even if you don't know anything, I'm not even telling you what the business is, but just listen to that first green one. Conduct 20-minute pre-interviews with 80% of first-time clients. Like some thought went into that. And you can sort of hear, influenceable? Yeah, that's something we could do. We're not doing it, but we could. Predictive? Yeah, I bet. You won't know for sure. It's a bet. Feels a little bit like a game. It's one of the reasons you get engagement. You're going after something you've never done before. Little trial and error is really healthy. Recommend next treatment plans for 100% of clients. We know this, we're just not doing it, right? Or maybe you try something you never tried before. What's going to be predictive and influenceable, right? This is a bank. I love this. 2 relationship builders. What's a relationship builder? Well, it wasn't anything. They just made it up. They said, look, we know people open new accounts when you get to know them. So if you have a conversation and you talk about 2 things, in addition to banking, that's a relationship builder. You get 2 of those a week, you're clicking. All right. Can we move from a concept to a target? This is a strategic bet. And you're pulling it out of the team. This isn't about compliance. There's all kinds of stuff people got to do. There's all kinds of things people have to be compliant to. If you could get that blue box with compliance, you wouldn't be looking at this. This, you need their hearts and their minds. You need engagement. Discipline 3 says keep a compelling scoreboard. This activates discipline 1 and discipline 2. This throws the game on switch. I love that term. Game on. You know that? Like you're talking, there's a lot of talk, and then all of a sudden it's real. Game on. Like when the scoreboard goes live, people go game on. And here's what we know. People play differently. When they're keeping score. Do they know the score? Not the boss, them, the team. Okay? So we for years, we had to do this without an app. We love the app. There's a variety of ways this can be done, but we like that real estate on the front of a phone right now. Let me tell you what we're into with these scoreboards. We like transparency and we love simplicity, right? Those are the ones where just new members at the top, pre-interviews, next treatment plans. Simple, 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 right? Can I see all the teams across the group? Here's the rules, right? Sometimes they're physical scoreboards, simple and separate. Keep this away from the rest of the business. Different app, right? If it's like on a wall, it's on a different wall, right? This is their game. This is the player's game. Visible to the players. Lead and lag. I can see both, right? Shots on goal, goals. Hits, runs. Down and distance score. Like those are all sports metaphors, examples of lead and lag measures. The thing we're doing, the thing we're getting. The networks, that's what they show us on TV. 3rd and 5, 14-7. They're trying to engage us in the game. Like I doubt they even know the definitions of lead and lag measures, but they know how to use them. If you got to make a physical scoreboard, simple, simple, simple. Graphs on the right, words on the left. The wildly important goal, the lag measure on top, the leads underneath. It's not unlike engaging them in a game. And we didn't have any, that wasn't how we were thinking 20 years ago, folks. I promise you. By the way, this is what we give them and this is what we get back. And it looks nothing like, right, what we tell. But whose game is this? Right? There's funny stories behind all these. I don't have time to tell you, but it's their game. It's killing me not to tell you the stories behind these, but let me just tell you this. So much of the day job, nobody gets a say in that. Like, right? In a multi-unit operation, a franchise operation, nobody, that stuff's set, right? And then there's all these stroke of the pen and investments and those kind of things and changes to the procedures and policies. Nobody, most people don't get a say in any of that. The wildly important goal is the objective that you're going to achieve by creating a little pull, not just push. Okay. And that really shows up in discipline 4. But what we want is, this is what it's got to feel like. It's got to feel like they're winning, not just that you, the boss, are winning, they're winning. And it matters. It's high stakes. Matter of fact, if you forget everything I said and you just focus, on those 2 bullets, you probably come up with all the same stuff. Maybe. I think you would. All right. So discipline 4 is how you actually do it. And this is really where you create pull. So every team that has a scoreboard, right? Every week at the same time meets, very short meeting. And all they do is ask this question. Each person, right? Remember that whirlwind. We're going to start competing with the whirlwind now. What are the 1, 2, maybe 3 most important things I can do this week to affect that, to guarantee we're going to get that lead measure done? Because we don't, unless we do the leads, we don't know if they're any good. Right? So what am I going to pre-interviews? Okay, I'm going to memorize the questions from the script. They look good when they're written, but when I say them, they sound hokey. Right? I'm going to really get that down to where that sounds legitimate. And I'm going to send 2 thank you texts to 2 clients this week. Right? Everybody. Commitment to ensure we get the leads. If my lead measure was like diet and exercise, all right, it's going to rain all next week, I'm buying the gym membership. That's the commitment. The lead measure is the exercise, but the commitment's the thing I do to make sure I get it done. Right? And the commitments, those are the yellow in this little diagram. If Evan only gave me 1 slide, and sometimes they do this to me. This is my slide right here. This is the whole thing. And what this represents, the blue is the day job and it's packed in tight. The yellow are those commitments we made. And if you pull one of those yellows out, that blue, that day job, it's going to fill in fast. It's like the blue doesn't want the yellow in there. What we're doing with the 4 disciplines, okay, is putting energy against non-urgent priorities. The blue, that's urgent. The yellow, the really important stuff, has a hard time competing with the blue. That's what we're doing. So here's what the meeting looks like. And then we're going to open it up for Q&A. Report on last week's commitment. Did I do what I said I was going to do? Number 2, hey, here's my scoreboard. Number 3, here's my commitment for next week. Next person, 1, 2, 3. Next person, 1, 2, 3. Get out of the meeting. Okay, get back to the day job. But can we put deliberate energy against a winnable game? It's going to tap into the creativity of the people on the team. They're going to own it. They're going to feel like they've won. Do my people feel like they're winning? That's something that matters. That's what we're trying to do. All right. Okay, I'm going to flip over. I know sometimes I go so fast. You're like, I had questions. I can't even think of them because he went so fast. So I'll give you, all right, so I'll stop now and let you think about a lot of hellos, a lot of highs. Hi, everyone. I'll let you think about a question, but I want to just share something with you that I thought was great. So one of our classic clients that's been with us forever has been the Marriott organization. And the number 2 person at Marriott, Dave Grisson, he retired a few months ago. And he he's had the 4 disciplines used all over Marriott. Over 10,000 leaders have implemented this at Marriott. And when he was starting with this methodology early on, he had a group of leaders that had sort of raised their hand to be part of this pilot. They didn't really know what they were getting into. And so I'm in the room, I hear this being said, and I don't know where he's going. He says to these leaders, I'll let you in on a secret. If you want to keep your job at Marriott forever, just take care of the day job. Just take care of the whirlwind. We will never fire you. And they're all looking at each other. He's saying, just take care of the day job. He said, we'd be crazy to fire you because the next person we brought in might not take care of the day job. You will always have a job at Marriott if you just take care of the day job. And they're thinking, I don't think this is what this program's about. Like, why is he saying this? And then the other shoe drops and he says, but they're like, okay, here it comes. Wait for it. Right? But if you want to get promoted, give me one. Call your shot. Give me a result, right? Go after event satisfaction. Go after everything in working order. Go after arrival experience. And then they backed it up when they interviewed in that organization. You had to come with your, here's the result I mean, yeah, I took care of the day job, but I also proved that I'm the kind of leader that can target and I can deliver a result. All right. So with that said, oh, Evan, thank you so much. His book is a must read, or in case, listen to. Thank you so much, Evan. Evan's a great guy. I had a blast doing a podcast with Evan. Joshua, what would you recommend to work on having clarity over hard to define lead measures? Okay. In other words, sometimes the wig is clear, but it's hard to define the steps towards accomplishing it because of the whirlwind. All right, Joshua, this is a great question. Joshua, this might be the question. Okay, let me say this. Defining lead measures. Let's think about that for a second. I got a result I want. I got to think of just a couple of things that I can influence that'll get me that result. Okay, is it possible? Well, sometimes it's not possible because the goal's too big, right? There are not, like if I'm a salesperson, there aren't just 2 things I can do to hit my sales goal. There aren't just 2 lead measures that we got to be real with ourselves here. The problem isn't the lead measures. The problem is the goal is too big. Sometimes the wildly important goals we pick are like the chapter of a book. And what we, back up. They're like the title of a book, sales revenue, right? Or overall revenue. And what we really need is to identify one of the chapters of the book. See, a lot of the chapters are taken care of with, the checkbook, a stroke of the pen. A lot of chapters are taken care of in the day job. We're already pretty good at a lot of those things. What's the chapter in the book? It's coming down a level. What's the chapter in the book that, boy, if we just reduced drive time wait right now, right? If we just improved the arrival experience, if we just reduced shrink, like if everything stayed the same, what's the one thing? And what I'm doing, I know I'm not addressing lead measures, I'm addressing discipline 1, but I'm getting you to come down. When you pick something that's at more of a chapter level rather than a title level, all of a sudden, Joshua, you'll start to realize, okay, when it's just shrink, when it's just drive times, now the equation's not so broad. Now I can start to pick things that, yeah, I can't guarantee it, but I think if we did those 2 things, we would see an improvement. That's the biggest challenge we have. People get the concept of lead measures, but they try to apply it to macro jumbo goals that have way too many things that affect those overarching goals. Come down a level and make sure that discipline 1, the wildly important goal, is really executable. And then come in with the lead measures. And that sometimes you have to go through it once or twice before you get a feel. But once a leader gets good at this, it's really powerful. Okay, thanks for that so much, Joshua. All right, so let's go back to this quote for a second. I really like this. I'll end on this. This is Peter Sengay. He is the author of a really well-known book called The 5th Discipline. It's written about 35 years ago. And we think that Peter Sengay had a similar experience to what we had in our 20-year journey. When we started, we weren't looking for engagement. We were looking for results. Here's to this degree. When teams would have breakthroughs, when they would have big results, we would show up with cameras and we'd make little videos out of them. And if you go on our website, you can see we've got all of these case study videos on 4 disciplines. And we were always frustrated because whenever we filmed them, it took all this energy to get them to talk about the results because all they wanted to talk about was the team's level of buy-in and engagement. And eventually we were like, oh, hello, that's a big deal. That's a huge deal. And then we started to really look at why. There was some research done, if you're interested in this topic, there was some research done in the 1960s by a guy named Frederick Hertzberg. And Hertzberg, in a nutshell, said lots of things that will drive employee satisfaction. But there's only 2 things that drive engagement. Think about that. Satisfaction, engagement, not the same thing. Satisfaction is, am I happy? Engagement, am I into the work? That's what we're after. So the 2 things that drove engagement. Am I winning? Am I making progress against something that matters? And we started to realize was every time you did the 4 disciplines right, it clicked those 2 boxes. Here's what a big deal this is. This is Sengay. He says, when you ask people what it's like being part of a great team, what is most striking is the meaningfulness of the experience. I think he took a step back just based on how he wrote this. I don't think he was expecting to see this. People talk about being part of something larger than themselves, of being connected. It becomes quite clear that for many, their experiences as part of a truly great team stand out, I love this, as singular periods of life lived to the fullest. Some spend the rest of their lives looking for ways to recapture that spirit. This is an incredible opportunity that leaders have that they don't always realize. Everything doesn't have to be winnable. You don't have to win on all fronts, but make sure somewhere there's something really important that the team is winning on. You'll get it. You can retire that into the day job. You can make that a part of the world once it's habit, and you can go after something else, right? That's continuous improvement. All right, we're out of time. Thank you so much for joining and for being part of this. Mike.